This is an inquiry for every school leader or teacher working with children, right, from early years to K-12. Post-pandemic, there have been a lot of shifts. There are different things that we've encountered. We're coming from a different experience altogether. And considering everything is normal is a bigger mistake and the area of concern. Screen time, having everything on technology, not looking at what is the sort of mental shift that children or the families have gone through is an area of concern. So if you are a school or a teacher or, a part of this community, this is something that we must reflect on is how much have we looked inside cases or the child development or the impact of cognitive abilities that every child is encountering, especially in early years. When you talk about preschooling, it's not just about the letters, numbers, and every academical concept that prepares you for a formal school, but it's more about knowing themselves, who they are. And that is only possible if we are going to be facilitating each child with resources, experiences in the umbrella of social emotional learning that can be part of their day-to-day engagement. Children don't converse, don't reflect as adults do, but they do understand the energy, the idea of what's going around, what's positive, what's negative, everything, because they are humans. This can be worked around in various scenarios, I'm sure. And stay on this video if your eyebrows are raised by this question. I'm going to be talking about a couple strategies, couple of them that I've used in the past, or I've been doing a year I've spent in studying different things that might be adding value to the day-to-day operations of any preschool or a K-5. Having SEL, like article I presented to UNESCO's MGIP, it was about strategies that any school must implement post-pandemic that encourages or that sort of gives an experience around social emotional learning or implementing social emotional learning in day-to-day your academic goals per se. When you start thinking of that at a school, when you sit for planning, the first question we must address is not looking at where the child is now, what is their learning outcome, and how much the child has developed, but more so about intangible outcomes, intangible fact. How is the child's behavior impacting or has been impacted? Is there any difference in the response that child has been making in particular things? So if you are a high quality teacher or a school, you must have anecdotes and observation of the child from day-to-day learning encounters that the child may have made to see the progression of the learning or the interest that might have shifted. When you look at those aspects, you get a sign that, hey, before coming to school or until this time, the child was interested into this area, or the child was never touching this particular toy or a material in the school, but now they're interested. So these things are not to be looked at critically, but curiously. You must be asking certain questions to the families. That's how families get involved. Has there been any major change in the family? Did you shift? These are the questions of concern that really impact children's learning level or the cognitive abilities later on in this time when they are in their preschool age, in their learning capacity. Learning is just not about feeding them a lot of content and the books and the materials and having them have fun and making them engaged for a long period of time, but also looking at what is the quality at which they are nurtured. What is your environment talking more about it? Sensitive enough to address social emotional learning that might take place. Are your storybooks making sense, or is it some random publisher you've picked and we rarely look upon as a matter of fact? These should be part of your planning time with entire staff. It must not be something that someone has thought about and you're just releasing out a letter that, hey, from today we are doing this. No, it has to have a mindful conversation. It has to be something on the table that every school leader or specifically teachers are listening, participating in that conversation, because don't forget, they are the people who are facing children, who are working with children. So their say in the decisions, their say in approach matters a lot. Definitely taking their experience in the implementation would make a difference. So here it is, look into this. And if you have implemented certain strategies to integrate social emotional learning in your school and also in your planning time, and if you're being inclusive in having your teachers being part of that discussion, do let me know in the comments. So thank you, and I'll come up with the next video and talk about more strategies that can make you relevant with the generation you're working with in your school at present.